Hour Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Got Darren Dreger coming up. Mike Golic will join us later in the hour. Our best bets, powered by FanDuel as well. See, now reports are coming out that the New York Mets, I guess, were calling on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to see if he could be available for trade. There's a couple of different reporters reporting on that, and I can't imagine the Jays are going to go down that road. But
who leaks that? Who would want that out in the universe? That's what I can never figure out.
Very good question.
Like, if I'm the Mets, I'm like, this is one of those that's on the down low. It's just, is there anything there? And then where does it go from there where it gets out? Or who would want that out? Not that anybody would, but I find it very curious.
There is a Pete Alonso element to this where I don't know what his negotiation is like right now. It sounds like he wants to stay in New York with the Mets. I don't know if the Mets are overly keen to bring him back, but it could be the Mets being like, listen, Pete, we're looking at Vladdy here. Like, do you want to stay a Met? Here's what you got to take. This is what's on the table. If you don't want it, guess what we're going to do? Pursue other options and try to get Vlad Guerrero Jr. or maybe sign him next year. I mean, it could be them looking at it. Steve Cohen, their owner, is willing to just spend ridiculous amounts of money and pay the luxury tax and all that kind of stuff. He doesn't seem to care. And it may be a precursor. It could be Juan Soto saying, hey, man, go get my guy. Like, they're very close friends.
Well, I was going to say, you want to talk about Pete Alonso taking a discount. There's your number one reason. We just handed a guy $675.
Yeah.
Sorry, $765.
Exactly.
Yeah, $765, yeah.
They're paying Francisco Lindor a fortune. He got over $300 million when he went there. So I don't see, anything's possible, but it would seem kind of crazy that Vladdy's going to get $400 million out of the Mets. But what if he does? Like, what if the Mets next year, like, screw it, man. Let's lock this thing in. Let's figure this out. And it's part of his future. I don't know, but Vladdy has made it publicly known, like, he's willing to negotiate with the Jays between now and the beginning of spring training, and pitchers and catchers report in less than a month, and the full camp will be rocking in just over a month.
Well, what do you think? Do you, like, in your gut instinct, does this get done before the deadline there? Or?
I don't think so, Noodles. Like, I think if you're Vladdy at this point, you probably hold to your guns of whatever crazy number you put in front of them. Jays aren't comfortable with that right now. And, I think if you're Vladdy, you're kind of enticed by the option of maybe hitting free agency and see who calls and what teams are going to. Yeah, the whining and dining, man. Everyone's got an ego. And I could see Juan Soto pitching that to Vladdy. Not even about going to the Mets. Just saying, man, you're not going to believe what it's like when the whole baseball world is at your feet. You got owners flying in, begging to meet with you. It's something I could see Vladdy wanting to test out.
That's
so
fair.
I'm not holding my breath that he signs an extension. I'm also not holding my breath that he's going to get traded. I think he likely plays for the Jays this year, but that third option of him walking for nothing, especially if they win like 75 games next year, just a disaster. Like an absolute disaster if that ends up happening.
What, 60, 70 wins, and then the guy just says, see you later?
Yeah, and he just walks for nothing.
What do you think's going to happen? You think anything different if that scenario is going to happen?
I mean, I think that's definitely a possibility.
Like, give me an option of a possible another scenario, and I'll tell you.
Well, the other scenario is they just pay him whatever he asked for, and he really wants to be here, and they pay him, and he stays. Like, that could happen, right? I mean, that's not an impossibility. Maybe they trade him at the deadline if he's having a good year and they're not playing well, and they realize, although that would be such a horrible look too. Like, we're not signing him, we stink, we should have traded him last offseason, we didn't, so now we're going to trade him at the deadline. That wouldn't be a good look either. I don't know, man. It's a weird vibe. We're a month away again from spring training starting, and
what if we wake up one
vibe.
day and it's the $500 million?
Could be. Could be.
I don't know why. I have no knowledge of the situation. I just feel like it's going to be a massive number, and the people are like, "We're paying $500 million for this guy," and
better help you win. They better win some ball games at that point.
Well,
you don't want to be the Angels North.
Yeah, they have to get their act together.
Yeah, they got to figure that out.
Yeah.
Mike Golic later in the hour. Here's Darren Dreger at TSN Hockey Insider. What's happening, Dregs?
Oh, just enjoyed the sunset in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Nice, out in Winnipeg.
Terrific time to be alive. Yeah.
Man, they look good last night.
They did. +3 in Winnipeg tonight. I know you guys were looking for the forecast. +3 Celsius. But sadly, it's dipping all the way back to like -30 by Friday or Saturday. So it's okay. I got my woolies. I brought my boots, my big parka on set. All is good.
I love it, man. Yeah,
What
+3
exactly
in Jan's
are
great.
woolies, Darren?
Long johns. Long johns. It's not a one piece. It's just, the wool long pant underwear.
Yeah.
I
But
haven't fired up long johns since grade 6.
Well, the
I'm not
long
gonna
johns too. The one piece comes with the crapper in the back, like you got the trap door, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Mandatory.
Yeah.
Have to have it. Have to have it.
Well, I know, but I don't know if you have to go to the bathroom. Like I don't know
That's-
anybody who
yeah,
would
like,
just
come on.
drop the trap door. You take it off
A
and you.
full gear down, though, Noodles? That's shoes off, dude. You're doing that at...
No, I think you can just you unwrap it from your shoulders and pull down. I don't think you.
Shoes
I don't think it's shoes off. What are you?
I don't
And by
know,
the
man.
way, it's not
What are you,
shoes. It's
Costanza?
boots.
Shirt off in the bathroom
It's
or what?
boots off. That's, well, I'm just saying.
I can't disclose the identity of this person. I'll just say he's a buddy of mine. Doesn't matter in the big picture, but we do this annual trip to a cottage. Normally it's Super Bowl, but we go several times. And this is back a number of years. But let's just say on this one particular night, he'd been overserved all day long. Couldn't find him. And it wasn't me that found him, but he was found in the washing room, sans clothes, nothing, just sitting on the trapper.
Yeah, that's a grind, man. That's a long day.
Look.
That's a long, long day.
That's punching the clock, man. That's all that is.
That's right. That's a warrior. I'll bet you that
Kinda
guy had a
proud of him
second
in
win.
the moment. Yeah.
I'll bet you he had a second
He
win.
did.
That guy came alive, maybe without clothes, but he came alive. I guarantee it. So, what's the confidence level out there then? Because Winnipeg, obviously, they've had really good regular seasons in the past, and the playoffs
Yeah.
has been an issue for them. Like, is there some anxiety still? Because they look great. They've been the best team all year from start
Yeah.
to finish so far. I mean, they've been great.
Well, look, I mean, the general manager is always very conservative, as most general managers are. I mean, there's no premature celebrating, right? And you look at your roster, and the way they're playing under Scott O'Neill, there are many nights where they do look terrific. And last night was one of those. I mean, Kyle Connor, you guys chime in here. What's the definition of a superstar? Where would you put Kyle Connor in that category? Is he there yet? He's certainly a star in the NHL,
He
but
is
he's
for me,
drifting
Darren.
up into that stratosphere.
He really is for me. Like
Yeah,
it's just the way he shoots the puck, how fast he is, and the playmaking. Like this
yeah,
total superstar.
yeah.
Yeah, he's
I'm with you.
superstar's weird because it's
It's tough.
tough to
Yeah.
define that. And does he
Yeah.
play the way he scores? It's just such matter-of-fact goal scoring. Like, he scored some
Yeah.
beauties, but it's not like McDavid or Kucherov
No.
or anything
Well,
like
I
that.
think he's a winger too, right? So you
Yeah,
like when
yeah.
you're a winger, that I don't know why the shine comes off you a little bit. People prefer centermen. I think there's wingers that drive play. Kyle Connor is. I think I just look at the marketplace too. Like Winnipeg. I don't think they get enough play there. Even
I
though
agree.
being a Canadian city, they should, and they are gods there, and they're treated well by the fans. But
Yeah.
I still don't think we pay enough attention to the Winnipeg
Yeah.
Jets. Like I wholeheartedly believe that.
I'm with you, and it's from the crease out, right? I mean, you've got the best goalie in the league right now, I think, in Connor Hellebuyck, who, as long as he stays healthy, is going to add another Vezina to his collection. But here's something that's stuck with me. So we had Scotty O'Neill on the podcast, 6 weeks or so ago, and we got talking about the playoffs last year. And he didn't mince words even a little bit. He goes, you know what, it's embarrassing. We were embarrassed. We had a great year. We went into the playoffs on a high. We're like, all right, boys, let's get after it. We're ready. And we did that. That's what we did. And he goes, so that's the motivation. Honest to God, fellas, that's what's pushing the Winnipeg Jets this year, is that they can't wait to get to game 82 because that just allows them to get back into the playoffs. But mentally, they're going to be a lot stronger and ready for whomever they face in round one. And you can, I maybe I'm just making too much out of this, but I feel like you can see it in their game. They don't always, just steamroll teams like they did last night. They win some games that are tight games. They've got Mark Scheifele playing that style of hockey. Kyle Connor, watch him on a back check. Those guys they're multidimensional now. And it seems like there's a much greater commitment to how they're winning games and approaching this year than maybe ever in the past.
We were supposed to get into something a couple of days ago about Hellebuyck and where he ranks in terms of U.S. goaltending. And I'll throw out names like Mike Richter, Tim Thomas, Mike Barrasso.
Winners.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to get to because, Hellebuyck's got 2 Vezinas. He's going to win a third this year. He might win a Hart. Can he be considered the greatest American goalie ever if he doesn't perform in the playoffs?
Considered, sure.
Yeah, I guess, considered, sure. But can he get that number 1 title? Does he have it already based on the way he plays? I mean, his stats might indicate that.
Well, don't you judge Hayes? Hayes, you judge on cups, right? Which is whether it's fairly or unfairly, right? But, I mean, will Hellebuyck be the starter of the Olympics? Because maybe he gets a gold medal there, right? Like that type of stuff. I think there is much more to the story of him to be written. But it's all about individual awards. The guy's done everything. You're right. He's been in a Hart conversation. He's won Vezinas. He's in the Hart conversation this year. He's probably going to win the Vezina. To me, that's impressive. That's Hall of Fame territory.
And Jamie, he doesn't have the option to chase some forwards or different players. Maybe you know what I mean. Some guy who says, "I want to jet off and go join that team." He's the goalie of the Jets, and it seems like it's going to be that way for the end of the contract.
Yeah. And look at the extension that he signed. And look, we've got the New Jersey Devils on TSN tomorrow night. And it's not like Tom Fitzgerald when they were having trade conversations with Winnipeg about Hellebuyck, of course, pre his contract extension, didn't like the idea of Connor Hellebuyck playing for the New Jersey Devils. He was terrified of what that contract extension was going to look like and the dollars that he was going to command. And then he signs that deal. And look, I mean, it's not chump change. It's big money by anyone's standard. But Helly looked around the room, and he knew that Scheifele was going to do the same. And then you've got Kyle Connor, and you've got Josh Morrissey, and you've got all of these pieces that are committed to Winnipeg and committed to finishing what they started. Well, this team isn't anywhere near what it is today if Connor Hellebuyck doesn't buy in wholeheartely and agree to that extension, and likewise for Mark Scheifele. And there's something about the lifestyle here that suits, Hellebuyck. He likes to fish and do all this stuff outdoorsy. Wow, I mean, and, you can't hide from the fans here. He's not walking through malls and doing all of that. So once you leave the arena, you can live a life in Winnipeg that's pretty good, especially if you embrace everything around it in the community, and he's done that.
With Darren Dreger, a TSN Hockey Insider. So obviously you're aware of what the Leafs went through last night.
Yeah.
Now they got New Jersey tomorrow. They're in Montreal on Saturday. Tampa here on Monday. They still go out west. Canada, Western Canada, California, Vegas, Colorado. They got a tough schedule still coming up. And now they've lost 3 in a row in reg. They've been booed the last 2 games at home. It's pretty wild considering, again, they're sitting at the top of their division. And overall, they've had a pretty routine season. What do you make of the responses to the boos from Berube, Marner, Nylander, and maybe how the fan base is reacting to what's happened over the last week or so?
Yeah, well, and that's what it is. It's a culmination of games. It's not what went down against the Vancouver Canucks and what went down against the Dallas Stars. I mean, obviously the Toronto Maple Leafs didn't play well enough, and I think you can go back even before last Thursday's game against Carolina where they had a terrific start, first 10 minutes, brilliant, and the next 50 were god-awful. The games they were winning prior to that, there were a couple in that mix where Toronto didn't play particularly well. There were some issues that they got away with. So it looks like it's caught up with them now. We talked a little bit about this in the show last night, and it does sound like Jake McCabe is going to be back in the mix tomorrow against New Jersey. Bit of a surprise. I think that I most thought that it would be more likely Saturday against Montreal, but he had a good skate today, and he's good to go. and maybe you guys can explain this better than I ever will be able to, but he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink on that back end. He is. He's a pivotal piece to that blue line and their comfort level and to a degree how they play. So you guys explain that, but that's the good news. And then the bad news is what we all saw on video, and I wasn't there live, but lots of people who watched John Tavares, try and get off the ice and limp off the ice, saw a guy that was in a considerable amount of pain. Now, they continue to do some testing, and they don't have the full results yet, but I do expect that there'll be some clarity on that tomorrow. So, some are looking at, is it knee, the way he flex going off, all of that, but, they'll probably miss some time. To the full extent, I think that we'll get more on that tomorrow.
Darren, something I didn't think I would ever say to you ever.
Okay.
What if this guy could give the Leafs a shot in the arm, especially on the power play?
Oh.
John Klingberg.
Yeah.
Is Johnny Klingberg a hot item right now, or what's going on with this cat?
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. But, look, I think the general managers that are interested in Klingberg are looking at it and go, well, look, there's not a whole lot of risk there, but there is some risk. So you'd sign him until the end of the year. The risk comes in the reality that he's going to want bonus money, and he's eligible for bonus money because of the injury time, right? So what does that look like moving forward? If you finish the year over the cap, you're in LTIR, then there's an overage cap hit that has to be applied to next year. And that's a tough one for some general managers to swallow. Brad Treliving knows and likes John Klingberg as a person, and I know Toronto is interested in bringing him back. And it's not like he just put on the blades in the last 2-3 weeks and said, look, I'm coming off that hip resurfacing surgery. I'm going to give this thing a go. No, he's been working at it, I'm told, for the better part of the last 3 months with skating instructors and working with people that Patty Kane worked with because he had the same surgery. And so if you can live with the idea that there's a gamble in all of this, what if he's as good as he was when the Dallas Stars offered him that big, big contract and he declined? He pushed back on it. And all of a sudden now you've got that right shot defense who can help you on the puck. That's why Edmonton is quietly hoping that Toronto pushes away, or other teams aren't as interested in Klingberg as they are, and he ends up there because they're willing to gamble on John Klingberg. They think that he might be able to help them a lot.
Interesting, because Edmonton, it sounds like Jeff Skinner's going to be a scratch again tonight.
Yeah, was that 3 straight?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Did you think that was going to go anywhere else, Hayes?
No. No.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, during the regular season, he's been hot and cold the last 4 or 5 years, right?
I think he's a guy that it's not a long-term deal. It's not a huge number, and he wanted to go there. Watching him, I always thought he was this really fast skater, and, he's very agile because his edge work is terrific. But his pace has looked a little bit off. That's the one thing.
He's played a zillion games, Noodles.
I understand.
He's been around
that,
a long time.
Listen, Corey Perry still gets around out there and gets on the forecheck and physical, and he's 39.
Right.
Like, to
You're
me,
right.
I just I know in Edmonton they're complaining about did they give him enough time in that top 6. But, I don't know. That Arvidsson is a really good player.
Yeah.
A really good player. And I think if what they're trying to do is clear some room and maybe a spot, if they start to, add to that group, they're a good team, and they're in win now mode too.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting to see what they do at the deadline.
I'm with you. I mean, their primary need is on defense, and I think that they'd like to add a couple of pieces, and it would take some of the sting out of the next several weeks leading up to March 7th if they're able to land Klingberg, and he actually, turns out pretty well, and he can play in their top 5. Imagine that. That takes some of the heat off Stan Bowman. I'm with you, Noodles, in terms of, Arvidsson coming over. He's certainly more well-rounded. And so the upside of Jeff Skinner is if he can provide a decent layer of secondary scoring. And he just hasn't been able to do that. And he most definitely doesn't have the trust of Knobloch and the coaching staff because defensively he's been a liability in the league for a long, long time. And that wasn't going to improve over the summer. So it was a curious one given some of the other pieces that Edmonton knew they were getting.
Well, Dregs, stay warm out there, and safe travels, and we'll see what happens with the Winnipeg Jets. And the Oilers are in action tonight, and the Leafs Devils tomorrow night on TSN.
Yeah, boys, I've got a date with an ice fishing shack Friday night. Can't wait. It's going to be tremendous.
Old school prairie
On purpose, or you're getting locked in there?
No, buddy, on purpose. I am going to be snapping walleye out of the lake and the prairies like you read about. I'll send some pictures your way. It's going to be a blast.
Don't have to, pal. You don't have to. We'll visualize it.
Thank you, Dregs.
Enjoy your long underwear.
Yeah, boys.
Yeah, exactly. There's Darren Dreger.
Have a good one.
All right, TSN Hockey Insider. I've never understood I've never understood ice fishing.
Dude, unless you literally want to just get sauced with one of your good friends and you're just fishing's like a...
It's an afterthought.
It's like, I don't care if I catch a minnow. We just want to blow darts and drink and tell stories.
I know.
And that's why we're going out there. Mm-hmm. Like, because there's no other reason that you would want to stand outside on a frozen piece of ice.
Well, cut the hole and you stand there.
You go in a shack. My brother has a shack, and he goes out on the lake and stuff. And
but it's like...
I just don't understand, like... It's hours and hours of just sitting. I believe people like run extension cords and have like a TV and stuff.
Hey, I get it. That's I like you throw out a surface lure and you can watch the bass like on top of the water attack the lure. There, you're going out there to drink. There's no other reason to go out there.
It's a hole
like
in the
You're
ice.
waiting for a little red flag to go up.
Freezing cold.
Do you remember the movie Grumpy Old Men? That's what those guys did. That was the best. But those guys sit out in their little shacks in Minnesota on the lake. They drill a hole, they drink, they smoke, and they watch a little TV or listen to the radio in there. Like I don't see the excitement in that. You know, I lead a pretty boring life, but that's boring. To me, fishing is boring. I don't know.
I'm not a big I don't really fish, like, period, but I can understand on a boat in the summer and you're moving and it's nice out in the sun and all that. I could deal with that. Like the ice fishing, though, you cut a hole and you sit there and you don't move. And sometimes it's like there was a video I saw that went viral recently. Every time they put the lure down, it was catching a fish. There were so many. It was just like down, up, down, up. Like even that, it's not even challenging.
I mean, I guess you would have to do it and sit with somebody for a couple hours and you weren't frozen and you caught some massive fish and you'd be like, this is worth my time. And if you're going to, like, fillet them and eat them and it's delicious, it's like, yeah.
And
but other than that, I don't know.
But you can do that just in a cabin, have good company, you know, like just get a cottage or something. And
I know. I just thought not my thing. At least there's no bugs, but you might freeze your ass off in there. That's why you drink.
You definitely might. All right, Mike Golic coming up, and our best bets later in the hour. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, best bets coming up later in the hour. Mike Golic will join us here in a moment. NFL playoffs, again, resuming this weekend. Every incredible playoff moment on TSN is powered by Bud Light, a refreshing taste that's easy to enjoy. Tune in game day for pulse-pounding action. And Mike Golic, of course, was a Notre Dame alum, or is a Notre Dame alum, and Notre Dame will play Ohio State in the national championship game.
You think they have a shot against Ohio State?
Buckeyes are a big favorite. I think they're an 8.5 point favorite. Yeah, I think you got to have a shot. I mean,
of course,
it's football, and you know Notre Dame's been a good team, but it's wild. Like Ohio State lost to Michigan at home, one of the biggest upsets in college football history, and everyone thought Ryan Day's going to get fired now. That's it. The Buckeyes are a mess, and now they just run through the playoffs and like they're the huge favorite, and everyone's talking about them as if they're the best team in the country, and they always have been.
But hasn't the playoffs, and I think it's great for college football fans, but haven't there been a lot of blowouts?
Yes, kind of like the NFL, yeah. I mean, there's been a number of them, and I don't follow college football as well, and the expansion of college playoffs, I think, probably is factored into that. There's 12 teams now, and remember it was 4 teams for a while, and now it's 12. And I get the impression that people believe it's just going to keep going. Like the next, it'll be 24 next.
Dude,
and then,
what's the biggest factor in that expanding?
Money.
Yeah.
Money, exactly.
Cash.
Yeah, if you're ESPN, you're like, we'll pay for it. You know, Amazon or Netflix, like they're getting in. If they want to pay for it, they'll pay for it. And that's what college football is all about. You just had a quarterback who decided not to enter the NFL draft. He transferred to Miami. What's his name?
$4 million.
$4 million the kid's making to live in Miami and play college football.
Yeah.
$4 million.
Yeah,
it's incredible. Like I still haven't wrapped my head around all that.
No, the kicker, Hayes, is in Miami.
Yeah, exactly. You get to live in Miami and make $4 million.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The cash,
college
man.
student.
That's college student. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're this Arch Manning kid who's likely going to take over, because I think Quinn Ewers, I believe he's going to declare for the draft. If not, it sounds like he'll probably transfer. Like, what is Texas paying Arch Manning to stay?
Did you get him to $10 million?
It wouldn't shock
20?
me. I mean, is someone saying, I'll give you $10 million to stay here and play?
I mean, Mike would know better, but is it going to get to that amount where guys
that seems crazy to me, but
sheets?
I guess I guess it's possible. I mean, there's no salary cap or anything. Here he is, longtime NFLer, college football, Westwood One analyst. Here's Mike Golic back on OverDrive. And, Mike, I guess we'll ask you that. Like, the limits of how much these great college players are going to get paid, do you see a limit in sight, or is it just going to keep going up and up?
Well, I mean, it is wild to think of. I know we all think of when we were back in college what we could have made. I would have, had a local bar probably give me a few free beers. Well, they actually did anyway. But
right.
That's the story for another day. I think eventually where it will go to, it's going to go to, there'll be a salary cap, and it'll be paid by the teams. Now, if there was already a lawsuit that the NCAA lost and they're paying money to the teams, and they're going to start paying it out next year to players, kind of like a revenue sharing impact. But players still get NIL on the other side of that. I think eventually it's all going to go to the schools. They'll control it all, and there'll be kind of a revenue sharing. So I think eventually there'll be a bit of a cap on it. Right now there's not, so players are taking advantage of it. Like Carson Beck going to Miami, to where his girlfriend is, and to play for Miami and make a bunch of money. So it's kind of the wild, wild west. It's basically college athletes have free agency every year, where NFL and basketball and hockey, you actually in the pros, you actually have contracts, so you can't be a free agent every year. So there's actually more freedom in college movement than there is in the pros.
What is your read on Belichick? Do you think it's going to work for him at North Carolina?
Man, I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, just for what we talked about, if players don't like now players will, I think, like the idea of Bill Belichick, because all recruits, listen, 98% of players in the college think they're going to play in the NFL, and 2% make it to the NFL. It's okay to think you're going to play in the NFL as long as you do your school and hopefully get your education to boot. So when you don't make it, you're ready to go. But a lot of players will go there thinking that Bill will prepare them for the NFL. But, listen, he's a tough coach. Not to say that there aren't other tough coaches, but just what we talked about, if a player doesn't like his style, that player will leave. The player will just go, get offered money somewhere else, and just leave. So it gets more difficult. And listen, Bill is not going to change the way he coaches. There's no doubt about that. So it'll be interesting to see how the dynamics work.
Absolutely, it will. NFL playoffs resuming this weekend. The nightcap on Sunday. That's the game everyone's looking forward to. Buffalo, Baltimore. Of the two quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, who do you have more faith in that they will show up and play great on Sunday night?
Well, I actually have faith in both of them. I mean, they're going to be 1-2 in MVP race, and I'm calling this game, so obviously I can't make a pick in this game, but they're going to be 1-2 in MVP, and I think Lamar is going to win his third. Mm-hmm. You go back, and I don't know how much it counts in Week 4. Baltimore just smoked the Bills, 35-10. I mean, ran for a ton of yards, and that's what they're going to try and do again. Now Buffalo ran for a lot of yards against Denver, over 200 in the wild card week. But the one thing about these two quarterbacks, at least for this year, they haven't turned the ball over, and that's a key. They can both run, they can both pass. Zay Flowers should be back for Baltimore, so that's going to help from the weapon side for Baltimore and for Lamar. But it should be a really good game because of these two quarterbacks.
Lamar has been a freak. I mean, the MVPs, you're saying he's possibly going to win his third. What do you think he has to do come playoff time, Mike? Is it just simply be the man and get it done? Like, is that all he has to do to kind of break through and get it done here?
Well, I mean, he's been the man two other times in the regular season and won the MVP, but got to the AFC Championship game last year and lost it. But they haven't done well in his time going to the playoffs. So that's the next hurdle for him. If he were to win the MVP, there are 6 other players that have won at least 3 MVPs, and they all have won Super Bowls or, in the case of Jim Brown, an NFL championship. So that's the next level for him, is he has to get this team to a Super Bowl champion. Kind of like Josh Allen. Listen, Josh Allen, while he doesn't have any MVPs, has the weight of Buffalo being 0-4 in the Super Bowls, and he's trying to break them from that. Now, he's got to get to a Super Bowl to be able to break it from that. But Lamar, listen, they were the top rushing team last year when they had Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Now they have Derrick Henry. They're the top rushing attack, but it's a different rushing attack. So much attention has to be paid to Derrick Henry that's actually freeing up Lamar Jackson even more. He's the first quarterback to throw for over 4,000 yards and rush for over 800. He rushed for over 900 yards and threw for over 4,100 yards. No other quarterback's ever done that. And that's certainly because he's a great player. He's got a great O-line and a hell of a back in Derrick Henry.
Mike, you were a defensive lineman, like trying to tackle Derrick Henry. Like, I'm sure you had to tackle some just freaks in your career, of course, but like he is such a massive human being. He runs downhill. Do you ever wonder, like, how would you attack that? If you got him in the open field, how do you attack Derrick Henry?
So 2 things. First, probably one of the biggest backs I played against when I played was Christian Okoye for the Chiefs. He was they called him the Nigerian Nightmare. He was like a freight train.
Yeah.
And when my brother Bob was in the league, my brother Bob played against Earl Campbell, and Earl was at Texas, and Bob was at Notre Dame, and then they faced each other in the NFL as well. Earl was a big guy. See, here's the thing about a D lineman. D linemen don't really get the running back at full speed or have to tackle them in the open field, thank God, because it would have been very difficult to do. You kind of get the back as he's getting going. It's when a Derrick Henry gets to a second level or a third level where he has speed built up, or he's stiff-arming guys into the dirt. That's the worry. The worry is a DB seeing a freight train Derrick Henry turning the corner or breaking through the middle at full speed. For a D lineman, A, we're bigger than he is, and B, he's not at full speed when he's going through the defensive line. So we actually, as D linemen, don't have to face the full-speed tank Derrick Henry.
Oof. Man, he is such a beast. And, I mean, that's going to be a great game, but you look at the previous game, the Eagles, obviously, you're an alum, you know what they're expecting in Philly. But you got the Rams now coming across the country. Rams have been playing really well down the stretch. They beat up on Minnesota the other night. Eagles are expected to win. They're going to be a favorite in this game. But do you think the Rams have a legitimate shot of going in there and winning this? And if so, how far could the Rams go these playoffs?
The Rams, they have a young, talented defense. I mean, they really did. You barely even talk of Aaron Donald being retired, because they got Braden Fisk and Jared Burse to go along with the other young D linemen that they have. I mean, it's been incredible what that defense has done. Now, of course, they played the Rams earlier in the year as well, and they won 37-20. They ran a lot over them. That's what Philly wants to do. They want to run the ball. And while the Rams, they sacked Sam Darnold 9 times, and Philadelphia has given up in the regular season 45 sacks. So they've given up sacks. There's no doubt about that. but they want to run the ball. They want to run the ball with Saquon Barkley, the 2,000-yard rusher, Jalen Hurts, and then supplement with the pass. And they probably have, if not the best, one of the top 3 offensive lines in the league. So that's what they want to do. And the offense for the Rams, with Puka Nacua healthy, Cooper Kupp healthy, Kyron Williams healthy, and Matthew Stafford playing, they have uncharacteristically toward the end of the year not scored many points. That's been kind of a head-scratcher to me with that talent on offensive firepower. So they can put up in the 40s, or I've seen them put up in the teens a couple of times. So and they're going to have to score some points because this Eagles team is going to score some points.
Absolutely, with Mike Golic. So you look at the number 1 seeds in Detroit and Kansas City. They're at home on Saturday. They got Washington going into Detroit, Houston going into Kansas City. Either of those teams, or of the two, which one do you think is most vulnerable this weekend, Detroit or Kansas City?
Wow, that's a great question because, Kansas City has been winning by 1 score throughout most of the season, but they have Patrick Mahomes, right? And they get to play at home, even though they proved they could play on the road last year. They have Houston coming in. Houston had basically a mediocre year and won a very bad division, but then they looked great against the Chargers. The defense was stifling. So that defense is going to have to step up and slow down Mahomes. But Washington going to Detroit, I think that is going to be very, very difficult to do. I don't know if Washington can put up the points to keep up with Detroit. Detroit can score so many points, and I don't know if Washington, even though the secondary for Detroit has been struggling, if they can keep up. I don't think either visiting team is going to win. And I actually picked Detroit and Kansas City at the beginning of the year to meet in the Super Bowl. I can't fathom picking against Kansas City until the Super Bowl just because of Patrick Mahomes. We keep saying, they're only winning by 1 score, only by 1 score. But you know what they keep doing? They keep winning.
Yeah, they do, man. They keep winning. So do your Fighting Irish. I guess we'll get you out of here on that question. They've got the Buckeyes in the championship game. Do you think Notre Dame can do it? And if so, how do they pull this off?
I mean, sure, it's one game. I mean, anything can happen in one game. Listen, I know when you line up the rosters that Ohio State is looks better on paper. They have the number 1 defense in points scored, in yards allowed. And their offense, they have the heavy hitters in Jeremiah Smith, the freshman wide receiver, who only had 1 catch on 3 targets against Texas. So it's Notre Dame is man covered, so they're going to man up against these excellent Ohio State wide receivers. They're going to need to get pressure on Will Howard. But Notre Dame's rushing attack, sometimes it takes a bit to get going. They'll get stopped, then they'll break one. They'll gain 2 yards, 1 yard, no yards. Then they'll gain 5 yards. Then they'll gain 2 yards. Then they'll gain 10. Then they'll gain 12. Then they'll gain 15. It's just as long as the score doesn't get to be a couple of scores away where Notre Dame has to pass themselves back into the game because they've never had to do it this year. And so you don't know how the passing offense for Notre Dame can do if they have to pass all the time. Hopefully they won't get put in that position. If they're not in that position, hell, they can definitely win this game. I mean, I'm certainly going to pick them.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. It will be a hard-fought game. And Ohio State, what a rebound after the game against Michigan, where everybody started talking about Ryan Day's job. They have just looked incredible since.
No kidding. What a turnaround, man. All the way to the national title game and heavy favorites at that. So we'll see. It's going to be a fun one. That's after we get through the first weekend. Enjoy your time in Buffalo, Mike. Really appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
Oh, you got it, guys. Thanks.
There's Mike Golic Sr. Of Westwood One and former Notre Dame Fighting Irish and NFLer as well.
So Ohio State dumped game 1 and then ripped off. They
lost the last game of their season against Michigan, right? Like Michigan and Ohio State play the final weekend of the Big Ten every year. And it was Michigan's in transition. Harbaugh left. They weren't a great team this year, relatively speaking. And Ohio State was like a 19.5-point favorite to beat Michigan in Columbus, and Michigan beat them, which was that's the biggest game of the year every year, right? It's Ohio State versus Michigan, and then yet they still qualify because it's a 12-team playoff. I think they're rated 7th or 8th or whatever it is in the playoffs. And since they got in, they've just dominated. They've dummied everyone. They've played 2 games already, and they've destroyed their opponents. And now they're in the end. Now they're in the final against Notre Dame, and they're a big favorite. They're supposed to win. So if you're a Buckeye fan, I don't know. I mean, you hate losing to Michigan. It's the biggest rivalry. It's Duke, North Carolina. Like, that's what it is, and you play them once a year. So you lose that game, it's bittersweet. But then you win a championship, pretty good. I mean, it worked out pretty well for everybody, I would say.
Big time.
But anyway, come back with our best bets. Brought to you by FanDuel. Raptors Celtics tonight down at Scotiabank Arena. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. One NHL game tonight. Well, the Buffalo Sabres are playing right now against Carolina. Weird 6 p.m. start on a Wednesday.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Yeah, really strange. It's basically like owner of Buffalo just said, "Can we play at a different time? Like let's just play early and get out of the way." I'm going with the under tonight in the Wild Oilers game. Total 6.5. This should be a playoff atmosphere. I think Pickard's going to play for Edmonton. They're in Colorado tomorrow. Skinner will play tomorrow. But I think these are 2 obviously really good teams, 2 competitive teams, 2 playoff teams. I'm going to take the under. It's a lone bet tonight. Big spread, 6.5 is the total. So I'm leaning 3-2. I could see Edmonton getting this done tonight. I don't think Kaprizov's going to play. But those are your best bets powered by FanDuel. Live same-game parlays are now available for every NHL game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly, 18+, physically located in Ontario. So tomorrow it'll be Leafs Devils, and Sheldon Keefe making his return.
Do you think you've got a video?
Gonna do it. Oh, yeah. What about the video trip?
I don't know if they do videos anymore. I think they'll just acknowledge them. Like they'll show them on the board or Jumbotron or whatever. And
not even a thank you, coach?
I think they should.
They should say thank you.
Yeah, he was a Leaf for a long time. Won a Calder Cup as the head coach of the Marlies, right?
Yeah.
He deserves that, for sure.
Absolutely. He deserves it. 100% he deserves that respect. And I think the organization, I don't know, you don't do a video of just him coaching, right? Like there's not a highlights of him coaching, standing behind the bench. Is there?
Well, no, because they all end with
the handshake.
Kind of disappointment, yeah.
Handshake.
They could play the Tampa series.
You don't even need you just show them on the bench, give them a wave, and show your appreciation, and that's it.
Exactly. Very routine.
No video.
I think that's the play. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Leafs, it's only 3 in a row. As of according to Willie, what's the big deal? It's only 3. But if you lose tomorrow in Reg, the booze, I don't know if it's consistent. I don't know if it's just that, group of people that were in the building last night and on Saturday. Maybe it doesn't carry over. But I think they're risking that if they don't play well tomorrow.
They're risking it. You can end it tomorrow because it's not a picnic coming up on the weekend. The Habs are fire.
Yes.
And you're in Montreal on Saturday, and then you got Tampa Bay coming in here Monday night. So it's not a picnic after this.
No, it's not. It's not. Like that. That's going to be an electric game at the Bell Center, man.
Dude, no. You talk about a road trip worth going to? That would be sick.
That's a road trip.
Saturday in Montreal.
That's a road trip. Wow. That is because the Habs are they're rolling now. They won last night. See, Hudson had 3 assists last night.
My guy.
That's your guy, Lane Hudson. That's your guy.
That's your guy? You wanted to send him down 2 months ago.
Noodles, what I said was if they were going to continue to get roasted every night.
Okay.
I just can't.
Listen, I did the hit with the guys in TSN today. They replayed a clip of me where I was like, they're years away still. They're not ready. And now I'm like,
they
what do you
dug
want?
the clip up?
Yeah.
I would have said no thanks.
Like I don't have an issue with that. Everyone's got opinions and takes, but I went back at them. I'm like, oh, really, guys? On October 28th, you thought they were going to be good? They were awful the first 2 months.
Exactly.
Listen,
credit the Habs. They've been great recently.
And here's the thing. You talk about what's in front of you.
Exactly.
That's it. Like, that's what we do. We talk daily about what's in front of you. And that's
what we'll do.
Going
that's what
well,
we'll
and that's
continue
what
to do.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with us talking about, topical things.
What's going on in the world.
Exactly.
And we'll do that tomorrow. All right. Thanks to everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate it. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
Completely disrespectful to McDavid today, Hayes. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.